Hey guys, and welcome to the first campaign diary for Heroes of Phandalin. I thought I'd get this going because I wanted to partake in giving you guys more D&D content because it is the most viewed, most watched, highest retention for videos that I've created, and it's the biggest passion I have on the channel. And that being said, I wanted to bring a campaign diary because it's been going so well. I obviously can't wait till it blows up even more and becomes a more watched show on Twitch and YouTube, just all around in general. Because from beginning, it has blown my expectations away on how it has from what I wanted it to be to where we are right now. And right now we are on episode 7, so this is a bit late starting from episode 1, but I think you guys are going to enjoy the amount of progression we get, not just through quality of life through the stream, visuals, audio quality. As you can see, as you can hear, I sound much clearer, more filtered, and I think that's important because we're not voice actors, we're not Critical Role, we're not acquisitions where we can put on a big spectacle. They have large budgets, and we need to make sure that it's not that we're competing, but it's that we give people a very enjoyable experience when trying to partake in our content. And though it's a D&D game for us to play, it was from the beginning for me to make sure that on only my end, that I make sure that the content being viewed would be as accessible, visually appealing, and easy to digest for the audience. I didn't want to have any of the players deal with any of that. I didn't want the players to. There were some audio issues that I recommended be fixed, but never did I say you need a better mic, or you need to make sure that when you speak you do this or that. There were some things you'll hear brought up during the Twitch during while watching the episode, but it's not. It was never meant to be like, well, the audience isn't gonna like that. It was more of, no, I can't hear you. You're squeezing something. You're whatever you're doing. You're squeezing or um, whatever you're playing with right now. We can hear, and it's distracting for us as players, for the stream too, but mostly as players trying to immerse ourselves in that world. And we fixed a lot of them since episode 1, mine included. My mic was it picked up a lot, and now I've got this very focused mic. But let's get back to where this started, where I was bringing up the point of I wanted to start a campaign for myself, to re-humble myself. The last campaign we did not go well. And we've had issues like this in the past, and this one, a lot of it, I won't say a lot of it was on me, but I was to blame in many respects, and I don't mean I was this aggressive tyrant to players. It's just I took the wheel in a way where it turned a lot of people off. Because I asked a lot of input on how we could go about creating our own world, our own campaign, and it turned into too many chefs in the kitchen, and the direction I thought they wanted was not at all the direction a majority of them wanted. However, the few that liked it were good with the campaign, but the majority did get overwhelmed, and it turned into, this character's not right for this setting. This character's not right for this quest. We would not be doing this. We would, a lot happened, but in the end, it faded out. We had good moments. We had some bad moments. We worked it out. We talked it out, and we just put it aside. We digested it later, and then after months of pestering me to make a new campaign, a lot of reluctance on my side, I realized I needed to mend things with every player, and I would have to pitch them an actually good adventure, an actually good campaign, not just hey, let's go play D&D in my world. So I decided that one, I wanted to introduce new players, um, and two, I needed to figure out how I was going to become the dungeon master that I felt I could be and that people needed, not just let me reinvent the wheel to show you how freaking brilliant I am. So I chose Heroes of Phandalin. I chose the Lost Mine of Phandelver, the adventure for the starter set for 5th edition, because a lot of people regard it as one of the best adventures that Wizards of the Coast has produced. That's not to say that the campaign modules are bad. It's just regarded as one of the most well-written, open, and yet still adventures you can take on. And with that being said, I thought it was a perfect idea for me to be put into a box. That if I wanted to show my Dungeon Master skills, I'd have to do it within that box. I couldn't just put people in other areas. I had to stay focused on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. This is the story that I'm going to pitch. And if there are edits, if there are homebrews, it has to maintain itself within that world and not break out, you know. And with that, I thought it'd be important to. Well, first, I bought the module on Roll20. We needed a place where we could play. We do not play in person. We play online and we play on Twitch, as you already know. I needed Roll20 more than anything else, so we went to Roll20 like we always do. I bought the module because it made things so much easier. I have a very hectic work schedule, and I put a lot of time into work, even though I don't. It's work. It's not a job I'm gung-ho about. But because of that, I can't determine how much prep time I'm going to be able to offer. And it takes a massive load off my shoulders. So, trust me, we'll get into the campaign episode one. I'm sorry. But this is as important as anything else. And I feel like if this is going to be a thing, we might as well get into it now rather than later. So, we got Roll20. I bought the module. We had a session 0. It went pretty fine. We discussed characters, classes, teaching the new players how to play. We had 3 new players coming in with a group of experienced players. Sorry. I'm not going to edit that out. And from that, the Heroes of Phandalin was born. I brought the pitch as we're going to take on a quick adventure that's going to teach players how to play the game. It's going to allow us to reconnect in a way where we haven't really done. It's going to take nothing for granted. We're going to rebuild all of our friendships in person and in game, and that's going to allow us to do the things we really want to do, and that's eventually a much more intensive campaign, a more intensive game that has more stakes, something much more adventurous, and yeah. So that's how Heroes of Phandalin was born. Let's get into, I guess, episode 1, the first episode that we did, and was live on Twitch, and is live every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the episodes go up on YouTube when they are done rendering, and I've edited down the introduction, the ending, and cut down the break in the middle. Um, because it's a 3 hour show. It's a 3 hour episode. You shouldn't have to skip over or stuff, and we don't have the music to fill those gaps. And also, if you watch it live, you'll get to see things that you wouldn't get to see on YouTube. There's a lot of breakdowns in the beginning between stuff we want to do, and there's stuff at the end of the episode where we break down how it went, where we digest. Anyway, sorry. I get all over the place because this is the first time I've done it, but we're doing this, but you learn. So episode 1 went not as expected, but made the most sense, because in your head you're saying, this is how far I think they're gonna get. That's what a dungeon master does. A dungeon master sits down before the session and goes, or before that, or weeks ahead of time, says, how much content are we gonna get through in episode 1? If we play for 3 hours, if we play for 4 hours, where are we gonna get to? How much do I need to prepare? I didn't prepare anything but the actual introduction, because I wanted to do something that I hadn't done in a long time. It's not since my very first campaign. In my very first campaign, I felt it was one of the best I've ever done, by far. In this campaign, I wrote down an introduction to Faerun, symbolizing a bit D&D, symbolizing an introduction into the world of D&D, and then introducing the quest, and then letting go. I had nothing else written for anything else. I knew what was going to happen. The Goblin Ambush. It's the chapter 1 of the Lost Mine of Phandalin. They start the adventure. They get ambushed by goblins. They have to follow their trail back to their hideout, and in finding that hideout, they will discover where one of the people they need to rescue is. And by rescuing that person, they know of Phandalin. After they get to Phandalin, they go to here, and so on and so forth. So I knew those things, but I didn't plan or write anything out. I was like, okay, I'll set everything up, and then they'll just play. So we did the Goblin Ambush. They got ambushed. We rolled initiative, and it went well. The goblins, did a little bit of damage. Not much. Or did they even hit? I should probably rewatch this now. It has been 7 weeks. Damn. Regardless, the adventurers got into a fight and they prevailed very handsomely. Everyone got to shine a little bit. Everyone got to do something, and it went as well as expected, because it was a bunch of new players playing for the first time, rolling to attack and hitting, rolling attack and missing. I have 2 fingers. Rolling to attack and missing, making athletics checks to climb a hill, asking questions about spells and things they could do, and it went very well because we were able to allow them to engage in a safe environment before going into a dungeon. And they did good, and then they followed the trail. They RP'd they didn't really RP as much as you would expect, but once again, when you have 3 new players, it's hard for them to know when they should get involved like that. And they followed the trail to Cragmaw Hideout, where the goblins were coming from, and it went well. For the most part, they followed the trail properly. They did run into a couple traps, one avoided, one not, and it was important for me that they hit traps in abundance before getting to Cragmaw Hideout, because everything needs to be foreshadowed in a way. They start the campaign learning about a fantastical world. I give them the introduction of the world over here, over here. I give them an introduction to their quest line, and then I introduce the most important thing, danger. We have a fantastical world. We have your purpose, and in the middle of that, we have danger. When that happens, and if you hit all three beats, you can explain to the adventurers without ever telling them. You're gonna be in an adventurous world, and you're always gonna have something to do, but there's danger around every corner. So when they found one trap and avoided it, great on them. When they missed the second trap and trigger it and take 4 points of bludgeoning damage because you fell into a 10-foot ditch, now they're starting to pick up now. We can be attacked. We can be trapped. We should start playing this game a little more cautiously. And by cautiously, a more realistic, as if you're the actual person in that world. You don't want to die. You don't want to be killed by goblins. You don't want to die in a ditch. You don't want any of those kind of things to happen. So you need to start focusing and role-playing yourself into that world more. And I thought it was good because once we got to Cragmaw Hideout, they froze. They were like, that's where the goblins came from? And we have a battle map, and there's water coming out, and there's music and we can hear the water. We can feel like we're in this area, and we've already been attacked by goblins. We've fallen into their traps. What's gonna happen now that we're in the real deal? And they took it slow. They took it very reserved. It did eat a lot of the time that I expected them to get further into the dungeon, but then it made sense for me. Back to what I said in the beginning, it made sense to me that it actually went the way it did, and I'm happy that that's how it happened. And I think for the first episode, it went well. I'm pleased with it because we got to introduce a bunch of different mechanics for different characters. We got to hear a lot from, a little bit from everybody, and in the whole, meet the dynamic, who would stay back, who would push forward, who would make animal handling checks to resolve a conflict that didn't need to be resolved violently. And because of that, we learned that it was just a humbling experience because it didn't need to be overcomplicated. I didn't need some sort of elaborate combat encounter to start the game. I didn't need some convoluted NPC to bring in all his nuance and sophistication and his foreshadowing of the end of the world or some big bad. It was just Dungeons and Dragons at its simplest and at its finest at the same time. So, as for Campaign Diary, I think this is how I will sum up the first episode, because I don't want this to run on too long, and I think the other episodes have more to talk about because more happens in them, especially as we progress past the first and second episode. The characters start to get into a groove, and they mesh a little more. Not mesh 100%, but I mean they mesh in the terms of playing D&D, not as an actual traveling group of adventurers yet, because it gets complicated, and it gets complicated fast. But I think it's important that it does, because that's how the game works. If you have a lawful good person trying to save someone who needs saving, and a bunch of chaotic neutral assholes, it's not gonna go the way you think. And that interaction is important because it allows them to roleplay, allows them to think as people and as players. And the first episode didn't have much of that, but it had the introduction, which is what you want, of the world, of the quest, of the characters, and the dangers they will face. When Gottheim went through and talked asked, could I calm the animals down in a way where I could let them loose and they don't attack us? The wolves in Phandelver, in the Lost Mines of Phandelver, have killed so many adventurers. I've never run the adventure, but when I read constantly without asking, just like reading the difficulties of running this, 9 times out of 10 that I came across in the first day, because it teetered off later on, but in my first like 12 hours of reading, of just experiences, things to avoid, things to watch out for, things to emphasize, the wolves kicked people's asses or just straight up killed players. And I'm like, that's actually a good idea. Let's see if he can do it. In my head, when I came across this problem, this idea, I didn't have anything prepped for this. Everything I did was improv after the introduction and so on for the rest of the game. And every other episode since. I haven't written a single word for this campaign. I wanted to make sure that I'm running it as faithful as I can while homebrewing things within, that need to be in the moment. Not homebrewed like specifically, but like, changed up. What was I saying? Yeah. So when Gottheim brought that up, I was like, all right, let's see it would be an animal handling check for sure, and they are wolves, chained and just used for protection. It's not like they're running around and frolicking with the goblins and having a good time. So there's not that big a connection between them. It's more of a master and slave connection. It doesn't have to be a high DC. That being said, if he does fail the roll, there has to be that obvious consequence. So for me, just to give you a perspective on how I rule certain things, after he brought that up, in my head I was like, all right, we'll make this about a DC 12 animal handling check. I try to keep things to a base of 10 this early because it's so hard to roll above a 10 in D&D because this early, because a lot of people saying, oh, it's the law of averages, or they have a 60% chance. That's a 60% chance if they're consistently rolling, but it's always just one check. So you could say it's a 60%. They always have a 60% chance to succeed. But if they're only doing like maybe 3 rolls in a session, does it really feel to them like it's a 60% chance that they're going to succeed? Because to me, 1 to 20, when you only have like a +2 or a +4 even, it doesn't feel like they have those kind of odds. Yeah, I'm bending what, with it. No, it just means 60%. If they roll, they have a 60% chance to succeed. Even if they fail like 3 times, I get it. But it didn't feel that way. So I didn't want it to be, I didn't want to leave it as a DC 10, because for me, DC 10 is for the base for level 1, like this early stuff, difficulties, this content. Man, I ramble. I did not want to have the DC be 10 because that is my standard, and that's what I was talking about, for low difficulty stuff, because I don't believe anything higher that early should be warranted. I don't believe the characters have a high chance of succeeding, and you want them to feel heroic as they're playing. So for me, I want to explain, that's why you need the context of all that I chose a DC 12 because I felt DC 12 would be a harder DC than my standard of 10 when we started. Now, he rolled a 15 or 16, something like that. So that means he succeeded. Now I needed to decide on what capacity he succeeded on, which became oh shit. Welcome back. Sorry about that. Yeah, my computer just crashed, so I'm gonna restart that last bit. I made it a DC 12 because I felt that DC 10 in my standard is the medium. 2 more points higher would be a above average difficulty, and he succeeded. So I moved on with how well does he succeed. With a 15, he's automatically going to succeed on what he's attempting. Now let me add to maybe what he wants, and not make this more of just a lot of people I see when someone succeeds, immediately go, yeah, you succeed, you get exactly what you want. I get that, but you must continue under the you must continue it in a story aspect where you describe what he does, or have them describe what they do, letting them know that they succeeded, and them taking the idea and moving with it. Um, Let them do that, and as you explain that story element, progress with it mechanically. So the wolves move, you put your hand out, they don't bite, etc., etc., all that stuff. You remove the stake from the ground. I mean, eventually after he failed his strength check, but you remove the stake from the ground, and they don't immediately attack you, and all that stuff. To sum up, to get to the final thing, when we get to when we get to uh so when we get to the waterfall trap, it was important that I describe um uh the impending doom coming. uh they've gone through traps. Now, for me, the waterfall is a very dangerous trap this early on. I can kill a player outright if they're unlucky. So when eventually they resolve the wolf issue of them not being hostile to them as they try to pass through, um, working in dark vision is important. I gave Mondo the opportunity to see in the dark in a way where well, not seeing the dark. I didn't give it to him. He has the feat. He has that trait for dark vision. But in roll 20, you have all this dynamic lighting that works very well. I gave Vondo the ability to see in the cavern as dark vision allows you to, and he could see the goblin on the bridge area, the cliff side, spot the light source of his companions, but not him himself. His stealth was fine. His stealth was fine enough, but they were seeing the light. And as per the thing with Phandalin, if the goblins are alerted, or if the goblins find any indication that there are trespassers, they they open the first trap, and they literally let let loose the gates. They break the first dam that is where they have the stream coming out of the cave. They have walled it off, and because they've walled it off, they can break it, and then a waterfall will just start push. Will fill that stream up very rapidly, and in a very difficult and harming way to the players. Vondo not warning them was his own choice. Not metagaming what he knew it could do. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't. But sorry. When we get there, It was important that I gave everyone a chance to succeed or fail, and then take on those consequences. The people who failed, when they took that damage, they were like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, and then those who also failed were knocked prone. Not a difficult, not a very punishing mechanic in this situation. But when they took that waterfall to the face, it was the wake up call. Um, they took damage. They were pushed back out of the cave. They now encountered what we had seen from the beginning as the goblins not only being able to set up ambushes, they set up traps. Simple at first, but now you're in their hideout and they are going to get much more punishing, much more grueling, and there's going to be a lot of them. You need to now make sure that you remember the mechanics that I've introduced. And I introduced them for a reason, not mechanics specifically, just I introduced the ambush. It's in the book. I introduced traps. And I introduced danger. I introduced a world, a quest, and danger. I introduced a goblin ambush, goblin traps. You need to look at those things when I'm dungeon mastering. I don't just work with things because those are part of the book. And it was important to bring those up in a way where they would remember it, because now they've taken serious damage from another goblin trap altogether and risk the effectiveness they have of completing the hideout. Taking out clearing Cragmaw hideout, protecting people from being ambushed on the road, and probably rescuing Gundren and his companion Sildar. We end the episode with them damaged by the waterfall, setting the wolves loose because they can't risk the going in and fighting a battle on two fronts, because if the wolves hit them from behind, they're done. They're dead. They all die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So we end with them releasing the wolves and preparing to continue going into the hideout. Now, that's pretty much the end of episode 1. This is also the end of the campaign diary. But I want to emphasize that as a dungeon master to a dungeon master, because after that I spoke to them. I told them, you guys did good, you were cautious, but you need to remember now what lessons you've learned. Not just about, the world in general and the lore I've mentioned, but the encounters you've gone through. You were ambushed, and there were traps laying wait, and then you went into their hideout, and you have now dealt with, and now you deal with, sorry, people are screaming outside. I don't know how much you can hear it. And now you have to remember that moving forward, because you've now taken a serious trap to the face, a waterfall that has been mechanically blocked and I guess I don't know the right word, but they're using this waterfall to do that. They may in the future still have more traps. They will definitely, if you are now entering their cave, set up ambushes for you. You need to remember these kind of things as a player, as a character, as a person moving forward. You can communicate with your team in a way where you can say, guys, we need to now start checking for traps. We need to be wary of them, and we need to know that they could ambush us at any time. And as we move into episode 2, they learn that the hard way. They really do learn that the hard way. So I think that wraps up the campaign diary for episode 1. There was more to go over, but there wasn't much, in my opinion, that needed for the discussion. So if you do have things you want to talk about, let me know in the comment section below. Feel free to catch us live on Twitch, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then catch the re-uploaded video again on YouTube. Really, if you could give us a follow on Twitch, it would be a big help. If you could give us a sub on YouTube, all the better. So thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. We will see you in the next episode of Heroes of Phandalin, and catch the next campaign diary of Heroes of Phandalin, episode 2, coming out soon. So thanks, guys. Take care.